Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world in 30 answers. Discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Allison Levine, and today I'm with Ben Papapietro from Papapietro Perry Winery in Windsor, California. That's up in the Sonoma area. Ben, welcome, and tell us about Papapietro Perry Winery.
Well, Papapietro Perry Winery started in my basement in San Francisco in 1980 as BRP Wines, and then in 1985, my business partner, Bruce Perry, who had also worked with me at the newspaper in San Francisco, had drank my wines over the last couple of years, decided it was in his interest to make wine also. So we joined forces as garagistas, and we started expanding. And when I first started in 1980, it was very difficult to get Pinot grapes, but that was my target, was always to make Pinot Noir. So another person I worked with at the newspaper in San Francisco was probably the most famous of the Russian River Pinot producers, Bert Williams and William Sellium. And at that time it was Hacienda del Rio. And they were good friends, so we used to drink his homemade wines. And I kind of got the bug from him. And very fortunately, for about 16 or 18 harvests, I was able to work a week or two learning from the master. Wow. So by 1985, it was still very difficult to get fruit. So Bruce and I were making Cabernets and Cabernet Franc and Merlot, making Bordeaux blends in the basement. But our target was always to do Pinot. So knocking on doors all over the Russian River, attempting to find grapes. We finally started getting some sources, and by 1988 or 9, we really had a good source of fruit. And so we were making Pinots, and people were loving the family, and friends were loving the wines. So at that time, we were making probably 9 barrels of Pinot Noir and 6 or 8 barrels of Zinfandel, and a barrel or 2 of Chardonnay. So 1997, my business partner wanted to expand and do it commercially. And I at that point was not really interested in doing that, mainly because I was happy being a bootlegger, selling to friends and family. So half the wine that I got, my allotment was, I sold half of that. And that paid for the other half, and that was perfect for me because I had still been working at the paper, and at that time I was head of a Teamster union, so I wasn't really ready to go in business. So eventually he did talk me into it, and by 1998 we were actually, before we really got into the business, it was because I had children and his were grown. Our main concern was educating our children, so we didn't have a disposable income. And my thing to Bruce was, if you can find a place that has equipment that we can rent and only have to buy grapes and barrels and pay rent, I'm all in. But truthfully, didn't believe he would find that place. And 2 weeks later, he found a spot at Windsor Oaks in Windsor. And we made wine at that location from 98 through June of 2005 to where we moved to our present location in Healdsburg on Dry Creek. Ah. So that's where we're at now in Dry Creek.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Well, we're celebrating 22 years in business now, and we're just jazzed. We love the fact that we focused in on Pinot Noir and done very well in making Pinot Noir.
And it's fun to say Papapietro Perry Pinot.
Say Papapietro Perry Peter's Pinot Noir 3 times and you get a free bottle.
You almost didn't say it one time.
It's something to think about for sure.
So what's your total case production?
We do about 8,000 cases of Pinot Noir. We do 10 different bottlings of Pinot. 7 of them from the Russian River, 2 from the Sonoma coast, and 1 from Anderson Valley. and we do a Dry Creek Zinfandel, a little bit of Russian River Chardonnay, like 200 cases, and about 400 or 500 cases of Dry Creek Zinfandel.
Wow. And so are you sourcing all your fruit, or do you have your own vineyard at this point?
Being city boys, both of us, and Teamsters, we actually never were into the farming aspect of it. Today we probably know a lot more about farming than we set out to do, but we source all our fruit from family growers. So we really have a great relationship with some of our growers. We've worked for the whole time we've been in business. Peter's Vineyard and Lara's family vineyards, the Nunes family, and now we've got Booker, Campbell, and Charles family that are all just family growers.
And where are your wines available?
Well, mostly at 4791 Dry Creek Road.
So mostly direct to consumer.
Mostly direct, but we were in about 14 states. Okay. Yeah, so a little bit here and there, mostly in restaurants, some fine wine shops, but our target is basically direct to consumer.
So what is your first memory relevant to wine?
Well, my grandparents made wine all through the Prohibition in the Mission District of San Francisco. And so it kind of hopped over my father's generation because they fought in World War II. When they came back, they weren't interested in making wine. They wanted to get back to family life and that. So it kind of hopped over one generation. But my family always drank wine at dinner, and a lot of it was my grandparents' homemade wine. So as a very young kid, very, very young, we'd have pink wine at the table, mostly water with a little splash of wine to start out with.
So when you moved past the made in the basement by grandma and grandpa mixed with water, or who knows, what is one of the more relevant wines or memorable wines that you drank, and what was that occasion? One of those wines that kind of, set you on a path of maybe new thinking or new inspiration?
So pretty much, I had a group of guys that we drank wines in the middle to late 60s. So we were actually drinking wines and tasting wines in different areas, and we drank quite a bit of Bordeaux at the time because we had a great connection. But at one time, somebody gave me a bottle of 1957 Hospice de Beaune Burgundy. And that really changed my approach, and that wine was kind of a seminal wine for me. And then meeting Bert Williams, I had known Bert from about 1965 or so at the paper, and then having him being one of the pioneers of Pinot Noir in the Russian River, that kind of that sold me on Pinot Noir for sure.
So if we were to come to your home and go into your cellar or wherever you hide your wines, what would we find in there? What would there be a mix of?
Well, mostly Pinot Noir from all the producers, But we've traveled, so I have some wines from Argentina and some Chilean wines, Italian wines. We've spent a great deal of time traveling through Italy, so we collect some Italian wines. And being in the wine business, everybody wants to give you some of the wine. So we have a great selection. There's a group of also guys and gals that started at Williams-Sellium. There's a pretty big group, Woodenhead and Vision Cellars, Brogan, Westmar, to name just a few of the people that came out of the Williams-Sellium group. And so those are some that I kind of lean to. But I'm sitting in a room looking at all the Pinots that are available at World of Pinot, and a lot of these people that make these wines are friends of ours. So we do get a really good chance to drink Pinots.
Is there anything you opened recently that drank really well?
Geez, we drank a 12, one of my wines, and we drank a couple of Williams-Sellium older wines, 1997. The Rocchioli was pretty darn good. Yeah.
Would you say that in, traveling around the world, who would you say drinks the best in terms of quality? Well,
I think Americans are like, we're we're in the forefront, no doubt. I mean, we've been through Italy and France, and both in Bordeaux and Burgundy regions. The Burgundy wines are fantastic, and they've been doing it for thousands of years. Although we beat them in the marketing because when we travel and are able to go to these cellars, and some of these producers are very generous about letting you taste any barrel in any of the communes that they work in. But when you ask, geez, we'd like to take and buy a bottle of that and take it with us to dinner, oh, no, we cannot sell it to you, And I always tell them that's how we're beating the pants off them, is you come to my winery, and there's anything in my winery you want to take with you, I'll sell it to you, no doubt.
So you had a quest to make Pinot Noir. That was something you always dreamed about making, and you make it today, and that's your primary focus. So I'm curious, do you think there's a such thing as a perfect variety?
Yeah, Pinot Noir. Yeah. Go figure. But if whenever we go to dinner, if it doesn't matter what people are eating, really, if you're anything from fish to meat to vegetarian, a Pinot will actually really go with anything that you order. Sometimes a steak demands a cab, but if everybody's eating different things, Pinot's the deal.
So talking about food and wine pairing, I mean, Pinot's your go-to to satisfy all things. But do you generally try to pair food and wine? Do you think there are rules you have to follow? Do you generally like white wine and fish, red wine and meat, or do you kind of break boundaries and just drink what you want? Or are you looking for certain elements in a wine or food to pair?
Well, we all love to cook. I spent some time cooking, and so the interest is to match the food to wine. I don't think there's any rule like white with fish. I think that probably was outdated because lots of reds will go very well with fish. Mm-hmm. Our Peters with salmon is fantastic, and I don't know. Pinot is to me the one wine that fills the gap almost of anything,
So if I was going to ask you what just a simple, quick answer, red, white, or rosé?
Red.
You never know if something, still or sparkling?
Still.
Uh-huh. But of course, if it was a sparkling wine made with Pinot Noir, you'd probably love it.
Of course. Or a rosé of Pinot Noir would be good too, but truly red wine. And basically, we'll drink everything from Syrahs to we love Zinfandel, California wine, but our go-to wine is definitely Pinot.
Yeah. For somebody who hasn't had the pleasure to taste your wines yet, what do you think they're missing out on?
Well, we're consistent from year to year. The two of my cellar master and my assistant winemaker have both been with me for 18 years. And one of the things we try to do is to be consistent year in and year out. That was a big thing. And then focusing in on Pinot Noir was our other big thing. So I don't know. I would say that the consistency of Pinot Noir for me is the target.
Yeah, the elegance.
Elegance.
That's what you get from a nice Pinot.
We have Yolanda jumping in here, Ben's partner.
Yeah, so Pinots are sensual, and the words like elegant. We like wines that aren't overpowering.
Absolutely.
And wines that go really well with food that don't overpower the food. So that's kind of the target for us in Pinot.
Mm-hmm. So if space aliens were to land on your property, which of your wines would you want to present to them?
Well, I really we've kind of designed a wine called a clonal wine. A lot of people make clone wines from a single vineyard. We kind of, in 2003, we kind of came across, we had a couple of growers that had the single clone of Pommard, which is one of the workhorses in the Russian River Valley. And just on a fluke, we mixed the two vineyards together, the single clone, and it was much better than the single clone from the single vineyard. So we started making clonal wines. I do a 777 clone from 5 different locations, so it's 5 different soils and 5 different microclimates. And we keep everything separate until we blend them in the spring. So we put together a clonal wine for 777. And then, of course, the original clonal wine was Pommard, which we have 3 vineyards that grow at that particular clone beautifully. So
the aliens would get one or both of the clonal wines?
They would indeed, yes.
So I know that you don't have your own vineyards and you're a city boy, but you're obviously working with family farms and you probably spend time in the vineyards. They're not your vines per se, but I know you probably have a relationship with them, working with them year after year. Have you been known to talk to your vines while you're visiting them?
Absolutely, and we do spend a lot of time with our growers, and a lot of times we'll do all the walking and we'll discuss what we're going to do from season to season. We'll look at the lab tests from the last year. We'll know if there's any adjustments that need to be made in the vineyard, and then all the decisions about when to pick are ours, and we have specific blocks in each one of the vineyards that are ours. So whatever comes off that is, and we tend to them without actually doing the farming, which, like I said, originally I didn't start out to be that interested in the vines themselves, but it's the most important thing, and we joke about it, but actually the wines are made in the vineyard, so that's where you really have to put your focus.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel that there are any signs or predictors that you look for that will help you kind of determine what a vintage is going to give you?
Well, right now there's no predictability. I mean, the weather has changed completely. Last year at this time it was flooding, and this year it's been dry all of February and into March, and we haven't had any rain at all. And so right now we're looking at a very early bud break, which is a bit frightening at this point because, the potential for frost and rain after bud break will definitely limit the amount of fruit we get if there is that kind of problem. So everybody's kind of holding their breath and have their fingers crossed that we don't have frost or big storms now that we've already had this almost early spring, incredible early spring.
So no signs or predictors. You never know. You have to deal with Mother Nature. But do you think, we're in California, you're growing grapes in California, which has a lot of consistency more than variation compared to other regions. Obviously, you just spoke to having floods last year and dryness this year. But do you think that more and more there's more similarity from one vintage to another, or is there big variation? What kind of patterns have you seen in the 20-plus years you've been doing this?
Well, in the early years, it was pretty predictable when you would be able to pick. We would pick in like the second week of September every year, and we go all the way through until the end of October. So last year we started the day after Labor Day, and we were finished the third week of September. So everything came in, and we spread all of our vineyards out. We have Sonoma Coast, Southern Russian River, Central Russian River, all the way up to Anderson Valley, for the reason to spread it out so we have time to work with each one of the vineyards. Well, get everything in 3 weeks is incredible. And it's a lot of high pressure because we're expecting to work for 2 months, and we get it all in 3 weeks. And in these warm years, like we're experiencing now, we've had fruit as early as the second week in August, which is, 10 years ago that would have never happened, and now, we're starting to see that pop up more often.
Yeah. So. In the 20 years you've been making wine, have you established any sort of traditions that you do at the start of harvest?
In the 40 years that I've been making wine. So one of the things is, one of my guys is a brewer, so we brew some beer to get started for. So when we get into harvest, we got some great brew going. It takes a lot of good beer to make good wine, as the old saying goes.
Yes, I've heard that before. Well, that is definitely a tradition of sorts. So when you were a little boy, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Geez, I don't know. During the time I grew up, everybody wanted to be in the Army, because everybody was looking at, after World War II, the heroes of that. So I always wanted to be a fireman. And every time I went to take the test, my unit called me up to go on active duty, and then they'd cancel because it was right in 1965 when they were starting to draft everybody. So I take the test, and then I had to pass. So I ended up being working for the newspaper instead of being a fireman. But I worked there for 37 years, and it was a great career. And it was really exciting working at the paper. Every day was a different story, you know. Uh-huh. So
you were writing?
No, I was a teamster. I was in delivery, but I was also had the great opportunity of being head of my Teamster union. So during the 80s and 90s, I had responsibility for 1,000 truck drivers.
Wow. So managing truck drivers or managing vines?
Well, getting into the wine business helped me a lot because that way I had a little hobby that kept me at home at some time so that I could still be with the family under a really stressful job. So the wine hobby was really just a hobby to keep my mind straight, and who knew it was going to turn into a second career of over 20 years.
Yeah, so now that wine is a career and no longer a hobby, what do you do in your free time for fun?
Well, we did fish for many years. I've kind of backed out a little bit right now. I just try to stay in shape and swim. That's my, my big hobby now is swimming.
And when you're planning a romantic evening with your lovely wife who's sitting next to you, what sort of wines do you open up to make for a romantic evening? And you can't cheat and tell him, let's see if he knows.
Well, we start out with sparkling wine, of course. So we'll have, something really nice, and then, something special. We'll some of the wines here, we look at Three Sticks, or some of the wines we're looking at over here would be something we would try, something not ours all the time. So
yeah, we're surrounded by about 200 bottles of Pinot as we talk right now.
It's amazing. Yeah. But we would definitely start out with a sparkling wine.
And then Pinot, which you can pair with anything.
Exactly. So what I didn't say was the seductiveness of Pinot Noir is what really excites me, because it's a wine that has such flavors and elegant notes to it that really draws you into it. Especially the nose catches you, and you want to go back in and smell it again and smell it again. You don't even have to drink it because it has that wonderful nuances to it.
So when you look back at everything that you have achieved and everything you've done, what would you say is one of your proudest achievements to date in your work?
In the wine business?
It could be in the wine business, but in your career. Or careers.
My career is negotiating health plans for the drivers that I worked with was one of the big things, and a retirement, regardless of your age, a service retirement negotiated, and a South Africa free investment for our pension plan. We in that period of time, we got our money managers to invest in South Africa free, and we started performing very well, being socially conscious, and I'm very proud of that aspect of it. The winemaking and all that is so much fun. We've had fun with it, but the serious work that I had in my life was important to me, and I'm very proud of the time I spent doing the labor.
Yeah, well, I mean, those are really admirable achievements, so congratulations.
Thank you.
So when you look back at everything you've accomplished, there might be certain mantras or pieces of advice that you've been given over the years that you kind of live with, that you take with maybe in how you want to live your life, or how you want to work, or how you want to be. Is there a piece of advice that resonates, that you live by, and who gave it to you?
Well, I think going way back is question authority and accept no alien orders. Those two things have always served me very well, and I can't tell you where they came from. But being a product of the 60s, that was marching orders, or more or less. I don't know. I think one of the things is don't be afraid to challenge yourself and do something. Don't say no. I've tried to live my life of not saying, somebody offered me something to not to turn it down, to take the opportunity and give it a try. And you only lock yourself up if you don't. So I never say no. If somebody offers me something, I would, take the opportunity.
Never say no. And if you could offer advice to our listeners, what piece of advice would you give to them? Never say no?
Yes, exactly. Don't say no.
Try every wine you can.
Yeah. Well, people always ask me, how did I get involved? And I said, and the way to do it is just keep drinking more wine, and eventually you'll find the things that you like, and that always served me very well. Drink more wine.
So I want you to complete this sentence for me. A table without wine is like
prison.
Okay, I want you to imagine a scenario. With a name like Papapietro, you'll know the word paparazzi. We're going to go with all the P words, Italian P words. But imagine that the paparazzi are standing outside a restaurant taking photos because there's someone of significance from any walk of life sitting at a table. They've got a bottle of your wine sitting there. Who would you want that person to be?
Oh, geez, right now, Obama.
Wink, wink.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I really,
Yeah. I think he drinks wine.
I hope so. We had served our wine at the State Department for the Chinese luncheon. John Kerry served one of our wines, and Hillary Clinton served one of our wines when she was Secretary of State. We're very proud to have our wines served there. The current guy doesn't drink wine, so we're not. Yeah. They won't be going there in any case. But.
Wow, so you must have a couple menus framed of where your wine was served.
I do.
Impressive.
And when we had the fire in our area, to go and pick out what you're going to evacuate with, those two pictures, the two pictures of our menus of the State Department and my Tommy Bahama shirts were in my car. That was, and my computer, and that was it.
Priorities.
Yeah, definitely.
So, you were talking about how you've traveled a little bit. You're drinking a lot of your friends' wines. You've had the privilege to taste a lot of good wines. If you had to go to a deserted island, which 3 wines would you take with you?
Well, I would take Chardonnay, Pinot, and a Zinfandel, and I'd be happy. And a grilled cheese sandwich if that was the only thing I could have, yeah.
A Chardonnay from anywhere in particular?
Well, a Russian River, and I happen to like ours.
That's fair. And Pinot Noir?
Pinot Noir, yeah. Well, I'm going to take my own wines to that island if I had the opportunity, for crying out loud.
Okay, fair enough. So, of all the world of wine that's out there, is there one place in particular that's at the top of your bucket list to go explore?
Well, I think we've hit all the main places: Burgundy and Bordeaux, Piemonte, Montalcino, Verona area. Southern Italy is still to be discovered, I think, for us. We maybe Sicilian wines and very southern wines that we haven't had that much play with. So that could be on my list for sure.
I heard Yolanda just say Spain, so you might have to,
We're headed there, yeah. So we've done some tasting of Rioja.
So we're taking 130 people to
Barcelona.
from Barcelona to Athens in June, God willing. And so we'll be doing some nice wine tastings throughout that trip too.
Nice.
So we take people. This is our 8th cruise. We our last big cruise was Australia and New Zealand before the fires, and we did a river cruise just before that. We did Marseille to Beaune, and so we hit all the hot spots along the Rhone River, and so
you're traveling quite a bit.
Yeah, we do, and we take a lot of people with us. And our main thing is history and wine. So those two things are great interest, and we do some great tours.
Oh. Well, now, you're talking history and wine, and I want to talk wine and music real quick. just to kind of finish this off, play a little game, pairing wine and music. A lot of times, wine gives us a sensation or a feeling the way music does, or we like to listen to music while we drink, or wine will make us think of a song or a genre. So based on a few of the wines that we've talked about and a few of your wines, I want you to pair with a song, a singer, or a genre. I won't put you on the spot for a particular song, whatever comes to mind. So I want to start with the Burgundy wine, your memorable wine that you'd had that was sort of one of those pivotal wines.
And the music I would have with that?
Uh-huh. Or what it makes you think of.
Geez, it makes me think of French cheese. I don't know about music so
Never heard of that song.
Well, I'm a big blues person. I love blues. So I've been listening to the blues all the way through most of my life. And my movements in life are kind of, I don't race around, so it's kind of the blues beat. Uh-huh. So I kind of live my life to the blues beat. Okay. And that goes great with the wines I drink.
So if I were going to say your clonal Pinot, the 777?
Jeez. Etta James.
And the Pommard clonal?
Oh, man, Frank Sinatra.
And your Dry Creek Zin?
ZZ Top, man.
Oh. And your Chardonnay you just mentioned.
Wow, that's a good one. I'm not sure. How about you, Yolanda?
Well, I always think of our friend Vincenzo Martinelli, who does incredible classical guitar and glass of Chard and a little classical guitar in the background. It's a nice match.
Fantastic. You're off the spot. No more, I promise. So I want to thank you for joining us today here at Wine Soundtrack. But before we go, I just want you to let people know how they can find you. Can they come visit? They can join you on a cruise somewhere in the world, but can they come visit you in Sonoma, and how do they do that?
Okay, so we're on Dry Creek in Healdsburg, 4791 Dry Creek Road, and
7 days a week, and we love people to come in and visit.
11 to 4:30.
Yeah, and no need for an appointment. Just stop in.
Fantastic. And I'm sure they'll see one of you behind the counter. It sounds like it's a family-run and operated business.
That's right. So we're usually there weekdays, weekends. We're at events like this at World of Pinot, and always open to meeting people. Give us a call, give us an email, and we'll meet you there.
Great. And then, of course, you can also order wines online since you're direct-to-consumer. And maybe we can find out about your cruises if we want to join on by going to your website. And your website is?
It's PapaPietroPerry.com.
Hyphen Perry.
Yeah, hyphen. Well, it'll go there without the hyphen, I think.
PapaPietro-Perry.com.
Yes.
Well, fantastic.
And so we have a really great deck that overlooks the whole valley, the whole Dry Creek Valley. And so it's a great place to come and visit, spend the afternoon. On the property, we have a bocce ball court and picnic grounds. And there's other wineries on the location. It's Timbercrest Farms.
Oh, okay.
So there's other wineries, maybe 4 or 5 wineries to visit in our location.
Oh, great. So you can make an afternoon of it, or a morning of it, or a day of it.
Full day for sure.
Well, Ben and Yolanda, thank you for joining us on Wine Soundtrack, and have a great day. And we'll be seeing you up in Sonoma, and we'll find your wines online.
We'll look forward to it.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.